Hey friends, welcome back to Uplift For Her. Today we're talking about something I hear all the time and something that I have struggled with myself. I am just so tired and nothing seems to help. If you have been dragging through your days, waking up already exhausted, crashing in the afternoon, or feel like your body is just running on fumes, then let's dive in. The truth is, a lot of things that restore energy aren't fancy, but they do require consistency. So in this episode, I'm sharing 7 steps we can take today to start getting our energy back. Practical, doable things that go beyond just another cup of coffee or another Diet Coke. We are going to talk about sleep, nutrition, hormones, nervous system, and even emotional fatigue, and how to figure out what it is your body is actually asking for and how to do it. If this episode helps you, it would mean so much to me if you'd leave a review or share it with a friend. This is how we can keep offering this support for free and to reach more women who need it. Let's get started. I hope you're having a good summer. This is really the perfect time to talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is being tired, because summer is actually the perfect time to help get your energy jump started. In the middle of winter is not the perfect time to try to figure out your chronic fatigue or your fatigue that's bothering you. We really want to do it when there's great light and life feels a little bit easier. That winter can be really tricky. So hopefully today I'm going to go through these top 7 things that you can do. I'm a little extra sometimes, honestly, so I have a hard time sticking to just 7. So it's actually 7 categories of things that you can do with lots of little steps in between. And listen to this while you're in the car, but ideally, if this is something you struggle with, if you are tired a lot, then sit down with a piece of paper and listen to it at 2 times speed, or go get the transcript from our website and really dial into this and see what are these individual steps that feel like they are speaking to you the most, that feel most doable for you, because it is just not worth it to feel tired all the time. Life is too short for that. Life is too good for that. And there are really easy, some not so easy, but really doable things that can help our energy. And I wanted to start today by sharing a little bit of a personal experience. You know, when we think about folks who are in my role, who are practitioners, who are sharing, oftentimes they have this dramatic, transformative experience that got them into functional medicine. And that's not really my story. But one thing that I can say has drastically transformed is my energy level. For the better. So I want to share that a little bit just to give you some context of where this is coming from. And of course, I have more experience with other people and their energy getting better than I do with my own. But I just wanted to share my own experience with fatigue, because this has been a lifelong thing for me. I have always been tired, like really tired. My family has many photos of me sleeping in random positions and random places, in you name a setting, and there's a chance that I have fallen asleep in that setting. And sadly, I will say, including talking to patients, not very often, but there are times that I remember sitting on that little medical stool in the exam room and dozing off. And I have no idea what my face looked like, but I really apologize to you if that was you and you were the patient. It was not personal, and I care deeply about you, but I was really tired. So I've fallen asleep standing up. When I was in college, I fell asleep in very random places. You know, you'd walk through the hallways of the university buildings, and there would be like glass display cases. And because there's a display case, there's no one standing there. There's no chairs or anything. So I would put my backpack down and I would sleep there. I would, in every circumstance, fall asleep in the library while studying, and the list goes on and on. So I can really relate to this level of fatigue, I fortunately have not had the deep fatigue that you can't get out of bed, but otherwise that just exhausted all the time. I can really relate to that. And I think that so many of us, especially as women, just kind of figure we're all tired all the time. And when I have patients come and tell me that, like, how's your energy? Well, you know, it's normal. How normal? Like, it's the same as everyone else. Like, no, I don't want that. I think that we should expect more from our bodies. Our bodies are capable of supporting us through the day without being exhausted if we do it in a way that our body needs. So that's what I want to really dive in today is, if you are tired, I want you to not feel as tired, hopefully, by doing these things. It is a really solvable problem. And I didn't have a functional medicine doctor. I was kind of just learning as I went. And so I started just not even thinking about fatigue. In fact, if I'm being completely honest, the biggest changes in my life came as I was taking care of patients, and I would tell them the right answers because I knew the right answers, but I wasn't really doing them all the way myself. And I would tell them the right answers, and they'd come back and they'd be like, I feel so much better. And I'd say, in what ways do you feel better? And they'd say, I can show up. I can go play with my grandkids. I can go do these things. And I would listen to that thinking like, oh, that sounds so good. I should probably do this. So I'm a terrible example, but I now have done it. And my energy over the last, I'd say, probably 4 to 5 years is night and day to where it was. Part of that is, granted, I'm not waking up in the middle of the night to deliver babies anymore, which is happy, sad. But most of it, I think, is because my body actually is functioning so much better because of these exact things that I'm going to go over. So there are ways to not be tired. So the first thing, before we dive into these 7 things, the first thing I want to help us all remember is that there are different kinds of fatigue. Not all fatigue is created equally. And if you can understand what kind of tired you're having, it helps narrow down what things you should do. So there is like that bone aching fatigue, like I cannot get out of bed to save my life. Then it splits off from there. There are people who really struggle to get out of bed, but once they're out of bed, they're fine. They'll do great. And I call that the burn off phase. You know, you get out of bed and it burns off in a couple minutes and you're fine. Like super hard to get out of bed, but after that, you're good. There are other people who are like, it takes me 2 hours for the fatigue to burn off. You know, I might have to change what I'm doing in the morning because I just cannot get up and get going until at least 10 or 11 or noon. And then I might have 2 hours and then I'm exhausted again. And then I have patients who will have just afternoon crash. They wake up okay, they do okay for the morning, and then they tank in the afternoon. And then there's sort of just low-level fatigue. Like I'm never crazy tired, but I'm just always tired, like always some tired. So understanding what kind of fatigue and when you're having it, first of all, helps us really understand what to do about it. And the other kind of fatigue that we have is emotional fatigue. And this is really important to understand because doing all of the other things that I talk about are not really going to help us with emotional fatigue. What helps with emotional fatigue is emotional care, right? It's dealing with emotional fatigue, not dealing with body fatigue. So understanding and asking yourself, am I fatigued because life feels hard? You know, do I want to stay in bed because I want to hide from my life, because I want that blanket over my head so I don't have to think about anything? Do I get that ache when I wake up of like, oh gosh, another day, I don't know if I can handle it? Another way that emotional fatigue shows up is if it flares when you get into an argument or when things don't go your way and it just crashes your energy level. Another way that it shows up is in a milder way is just through the day. If you are doing okay in the morning, you wake up, you're doing okay, and then you get to a certain point in the day and you just tank emotionally. One of these that I think of a lot is with folks in the healthcare system and teachers also. And I put moms in this category too, where you just do the same thing most of the day. And then at some point you're just over it. Like, I don't want to do this right now. Like, I don't want to keep doing the same thing, even if you love it. And for teachers, for example, you might love your kids and might love teaching, but at a certain point in the day, you're just over it. You're ready for a break. You're worn out by that day and what it took from you. And you just need whatever you need. It's based on that idea of like that emotional fatigue. So first off, just kind of think about when that fatigue is showing up. The second thing is to look at when it started. Did it start, 2 weeks ago? Did it start a year ago? Has it been your whole life? Because that too can help you kind of figure out what it is. Now into these 7 things. These are just 7 categories that I came up with that can help guide us towards what to try to help be not so tired. Now, obviously, the first one you can probably guess is sleep. If your sleep is terrible, then the chance of you having great energy is much lower. And so I always start with sleep because it's not always, and I would say for my patient population, I would say it's not usually the main source of fatigue, but it is the first one that we need to talk about, because if we fix everything else and you're getting 3 hours of sleep or you're getting interrupted sleep for 6 hours, that's not great. You're not going to feel great. So the first thing we want to think about is sleep. So when we think about sleep, we think, are you going to bed on time? Are you falling asleep? Are you waking up a bunch? Are you waking up feeling refreshed? For people who have struggles to fall asleep, we're really going to start first with the environment leading up to sleep. Are you stressing right up until the last minute? Are you exercising right before bed? Are you eating right before bed? In order to help our bodies fall asleep, we want to have a system in place that helps the body transition from being awake and taking care of our regular daily challenges to shifting to brain, it's now time to rest and recover. And so to do that, we don't want to be digesting while we're trying to go to sleep. We don't want to have had caffeine in the system from at least 2 o'clock on for most people. And this includes people who say like, caffeine doesn't do anything for me. I could have a Diet Coke at 6 o'clock and then still fall asleep fine some nights. Like if you're struggling with sleep and energy, I still would cut that caffeine off at the latest in the early afternoon. So we want to create this environment that helps our body fall asleep, not digesting, not having caffeine on board, not having a bunch of sugar on board. So you might try cutting out desserts for a week or two and seeing if that helps you fall asleep better. You also want to think about not solving all of life's problems in the moments before you go to bed. I call it fighting tigers, right? We fight tigers all day. We're dealing with problems all day. You have to find a way to tell your brain, okay, that's for daytime. Now it's nighttime. I call it a gateway routine. What is your ritual that is that gateway from day to night? For some people, that's going to be offloading or dumping the problems of the day. And journaling can be really helpful there. Don't let it get in your brain of like you're supposed to recount the things of the day, like you're journaling for your posterity or whatever. I'm talking about a brain dump journal. Like whatever words need to come out, give them a way to come out. With technology, there's some easier ways to do this. Some people will do it on a voice note and then delete it. So if you don't want to write, you can type. There's online journals, or you can make a document and delete it. You can voice it and then delete it. You just want to have a chance for your brain to say what it needs to say. This is especially true for those of us, I think this is everyone, who feels quite busy, who feels quite stimulated through the day, because when is the brain getting a chance to communicate with us? Like it's sounding alarms all day, like don't forget to do this, and that person was a jerk, and make sure that you don't do this, and you're a failure, and our brain is constantly communicating, but how often do we pause and like allow that communication space? And if we allow it space, sometimes it just needs to deliver the message and then it will chill out. So offloading those burdens of the day can be something that can help us prepare for sleep. In addition to that, there are physical cues we can give our body to switch gears from daytime to nighttime. That can be many, many things: meditation, stretching, calm breaths, tea, the ritual of making a tea that's nice, a warm bath, an essential oil that you like, a lotion that has a smell that's very calming to you, candlelight, having whatever it is that helps you tell your body in a ritualistic way. And what I mean by ritual is I do this every single night. And so then as I get that stimulus, the brain is like, okay, got it. It's time to stop fighting tigers and move into preparing to sleep. So when we're talking about supporting sleep, the first thing is, are we falling asleep? Now, there are some supplements that can be really helpful to fall asleep and stay asleep. One of them in perimenopause is progesterone. If it works for you, it works really well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So it's not the end all be all, but man, if it works really well. Another thing that I really like to help people fall asleep, especially if they're having trouble shutting down their brain, is a supplement called L-theanine. And L-theanine is an amino acid that can really help with sleep and anxiety. So for a lot of people, that will help really calm down the brain. Ashwagandha is another one. It's an adaptogen that can help the brain chill out. I think it changes the perspective of stress. So it helps us feel like I'm not making my stressors up, but they're okay till tomorrow. Like they're not critical. They're not going to get me while I'm sleeping. Passion flower tea, or there's various calming teas, or now there's lots of different drinks and different formulations that you can get to help calm the brain down. But I don't find that any of those supplements work as well in isolation. Most of them work very well with a gateway routine, with instruction to your body that I am now going to calm down. So magnesium glycinate is another one that I really like there. So looking for ways to help your body fall asleep. Another thing that's helpful there that I'm sure you've heard is to eliminate screens or narrow screens, the usage of screens down in the hours leading up to bedtime. No one wants to do this, right? If you're using screens to cope before bed like I am, then you don't want to do this. But here's what I would say. If you are absolutely exhausted, consider it an experiment. Just see if for 2 weeks, you can really give that window of time before bed to have no screen time and just see if it makes a difference. Some people, it really makes a huge difference, and some people it makes zero difference. So now you can know for yourself, does that make a difference for you? And I would say that about all of this. Don't feel like you have to do all of this all at once, but do your own experiment to see if it's beneficial. So can you fall asleep okay? And then can you stay asleep? If you're waking in the middle of the night, can you do a meditation or do a body scan, something to allow your brain to help you get back to sleep? Along the lines of supporting sleep when we're dealing with fatigue is looking for sleep apnea. If you snore, if your partner who sleeps next to you says that you kind of hold your breath a little bit, if you're a mouth breather at nighttime, all of those things would be reason to consider a sleep study. There's now home sleep studies that you can pay for out of pocket. There's even some direct to consumer. They're not my favorite because you kind of want help to interpret and know what the next steps are. But there are ways now to get an affordable sleep study. Insurance frequently pays for it very well if you have daytime fatigue and any other sign of sleep apnea like snoring. So if you do snore or you are fatigued, then doing a sleep study is helpful. Now, some people don't want the answers of the sleep study because if it shows apnea, then we're talking about a CPAP machine. But I think data is helpful. So if you have apnea, we should manage it. And there are other ways that we can help with that. There's dental appliances. There's sometimes orthodontic work, sometimes inflammation work. There's lots of things that we can do to help with that. But if you're waking up or having restless sleep all night, then that's not going to help your fatigue. So it's worth knowing that. And then the last thing I would say is looking at your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is your body's relationship to light and that sleep-wake cycle. And this is hugely beneficial. But when I say it, you're going to think I'm bonkers. And you're going to think like, I am so exhausted. There's no way doing that simple little thing is going to make a difference. But summertime is the perfect time to test this out and try it for yourself and see if it's going to work. And that is helping to support your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is especially important if you have hormone issues and if you are having trouble getting out of bed, where it feels like you just want to keep sleeping for 3 more hours. That means that your body is not responding to the light that it's seeing. So one of the ways we can deal with this is to get natural light first thing in the morning. This is way harder to manage in the winter, but if we can get your body trained in the summer, oftentimes it's easier to manage in the winter. When I first started on my journey, I heard this and I was like, you hear the influencers who are like, I go outside for 20 minutes every morning and meditate. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I can hardly get the covers off of me to get out of bed. I just can't do that. And so what I did instead was we have blackout blinds in our bedroom and we have tiny cracks of light that come through. So as soon as my alarm went off, I would force myself to focus my eyeballs on that tiny strip of light coming through the blackout blinds. And that, when I started, was enough to get my feet out of bed and to get to the bathroom. And in the bathroom, then we don't have blackout blinds. So I would look out the window and I would just get light in my eyeballs. And I know it sounds silly, but there are receptors, cellular receptors in the back of your eyeballs that are just looking for light. Their whole job is to say, is there light? Because if so, I will trigger all of the I'm awake mechanisms. And if there's no light, then I will not trigger those awake mechanisms. So we want the eyeballs to see light so that we can have all of the awake mechanisms, so that we can get appropriate amounts of cortisol and we can suppress our melatonin and we can get the cells hopping and producing energy through their mitochondria. We want all of those things that are triggered by light. This one is free. It is easy. And I'm not surprised, but truly many people will not do this. And it is so easy to do. So if you can get your eyeballs to have some light, that means if you don't have blackout blinds, just look out the window. If you do have blackout blinds, can you open them right when you first wake up? There are some other artificial, lights and things that I do like in the wintertime. But in this time of the year, if you can just get light in your eyeballs first thing when you wake up, for a brief period of time, 1 minute, we're not talking about fancy, it really can start to make a difference. I think it takes about 2 weeks, maybe up to 4 weeks to really see that training get into your circadian rhythm and your system. But if you can get light at the appropriate time of day, it really does start to help. Now, also in summer, the added bonus to this is it's not cold outside. So if you can, then once your feet are on the ground, you're out of your covers, you're getting up and moving, can you go stand outside? My favorite is to stand on grass as opposed to pavement. That's called grounding. People will have their scientific explanations. I don't know. I don't care. I just feel good when I do it. So if we can put our feet on grass or nature on dirt or whatever and get that light in our eyeballs, and then take that opportunity to do a little centering to say, this is who I want to be for the day. I want to be alert. I want to be energetic. I want to be calm. And for me, I'll kind of imagine passing off all of the garbage that I'm carrying around with me, just passing that off through my feet into the ground and saying, this is who I want to be today. I don't need this other stuff. I don't need to be, stressed. I don't need to be racing. I don't need to be in any urgency. It's just my little centering moment that I think helps with the nervous system, but it also helps with that circadian rhythm and our brain. The more we tell our brains what we want, the better it's going to tell our bodies to give it to us. So it's brief. I do this in the morning, many mornings, for like a minute. It's not long. And it doesn't take much, but that's our circadian rhythm. If we can start to help our circadian rhythm, the first thing you will notice is that you'll start waking up. I have never woken up to light in my life. I will sleep as long as I need to very well. But after doing these teeny little tricks, I found myself waking up consistently 6:30. I still am not always good at getting out of bed, but I can wake up really naturally and really easily now just with that light cue. So trust me on that. If you do nothing else, this is a really great place to start is with circadian rhythm. If you're struggling to fall asleep, then also do those other exercises. If you feel like you've nailed your sleep, you're falling asleep, you're staying asleep, you're waking up, you're doing the things I'm talking about, the next thing we think about is how are you fueling your body? So this is number 2 out of 7. Number 2 is fuel the body. There are lots of good ways to fuel the body, and the internet wants to tell us so much about what we're doing wrong and all the things that you should stop doing and all the things you should stop eating and all the bad things that it's doing to you. But really, what we want to start with is how are you fueling? What are you giving your body that it's running off of? Not what are you giving your body that it's not running off of. So Smarties or, your candy of choice, a candy bar, you're not running off of that very well. How are you fueling your body with the good stuff? Are you getting enough of the protein in? Are you getting enough healthy fats? Are you getting enough minerals like zinc and potassium and magnesium? Are you getting these good minerals into your body? Are you getting enough vegetables with the colors on them, those phytonutrients? Colorful vegetables all have different things in them that are really reparative to our cells. So we're really looking at what are we doing to program the body to give us energy? Are we giving it the fuel and the instructions so that the body says, oh, she just told me that she has fuel on board. She wants to use that fuel to go do something fun. Here you go. I will connect those dots and give your body the energy it needs. Most of us have messed up that process through not having adequate fuel and through asking our bodies to do too much. So if we're under fueling and then we're running all the time or we're doing Orange Theory or high fitness or CrossFit and we're just demanding so much out of our bodies, then we're not telling our bodies the right equation. We're not telling them the right thing. We want to give it the fuel and then ask it the appropriate things in terms of expenditure of energy. So if we're getting specific, the first thing I recommend is figure out breakfast. Don't think about anything else. Don't think about what to cut out. Don't think about blood sugar regulation, although I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Just think about breakfast. If you've been doing fasting and you're skipping breakfast and that's working for you, fine. We can talk later. But if you are skipping breakfast because you're in a rush and you're exhausted, then not the right time to start intermittent fasting. Right now, we fuel. And you focus on breakfast, 30 to 40 grams of protein at breakfast, 50 if you're tall. So really focusing on that higher protein breakfast first thing. Don't think about anything else. Just get the protein in the morning. If you can get something colorful like berries or beets, having some sort of color in your breakfast, then you get extra credit. So you're doing protein, you're doing something with healthy fat. Most of the things that we eat for protein, like turkey bacon or eggs or other things that you would have for breakfast, have those healthy fats and have the protein. So that's our goal number one, is to have this high protein breakfast, colors in there, and then limiting sugar in the breakfast. So we're trying not to have high sugary foods. This is going to help set the stage for energy. What a lot of us do incorrectly is we have this diet culture in our brains from the 1990s, right? And we wake up and we say, secretly, I want to lose weight. And so secretly, I'm going to be really happy if I'm not hungry and I can skip breakfast because that'll mean fewer calories for me. And then we tell ourselves like, oh, I'm not really hungry, or I'm too rushed, or whatever the excuse is, we're skipping breakfast. Then we get to lunch and we may not be hungry yet. And so we, secretly pat ourselves on the back, like, good for me. My appetite is so tiny and I'm going to lose weight because I'm not eating because I don't have much of an appetite. And then we get to the afternoon and our energy tanks. And then we get to dinner and we're starving and we want to eat all the things. We want to eat all the ice cream and all of the candies and all of the sweets, or all of the salty things and all the chips and all the carbs. We do it all backwards. If we can choose our breakfast when we're not starving, we're going to make better choices, but we're going to fuel our body up front. And the body's going to say, got it. You gave me fuel. I'm going to use that fuel to give the cells the energy that they need to go do your day. Great. And then we get to lunch and you do it again. You get that nice high protein, low sugar, low simple carbohydrates, and you're aiming for protein and fiber in lunchtime. Then by the time you get to dinner, your body's really well fueled. So you're not going to have crazy cravings. You're not going to have as much of that energy crash that you're like, I have got to eat right now or I'm going to die. You're really going to have that energy on hand so you can make a healthy decision for dinner. And then that's going to enable you to cut out the sweets after dinner. So you see, we go about it wrong. The first thing we want to say is like, no sweets after dinner. That's the first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to cut out sweets. And then the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out carbs. Like, it's the wrong order. You're going to be hungry, you're going to be hangry, and you're going to be craving sugar or salt. So instead, start with breakfast, high protein, some colors, some fiber, low sugar. Same thing for lunch. Have a healthy dinner, whatever that looks like for you. Cut out the dessert, stop eating after dinner, and watch that energy start to improve. I will tell you, with patients, I have a hard time getting some of them to do the light thing. The ones who do will say it will help. But this is the one, when people do this, they come back and they will say, like, I cannot believe how much energy I have. The other two things along here that they are surprised by frequently is the benefits of cutting out caffeine and the benefits of cutting out alcohol. No one wants to hear me say that. And I don't think you have to do it forever. But if you do your science experiment on yourself and you say, I cut out caffeine, I felt like trash for 4 days, maybe a week, and then gosh, my energy really started to level out through the day where I wasn't peaking and crashing and then needing more caffeine and then crashing. A lot of people find that they're better off without caffeine, and I invite you to make that decision for yourself. I'm not anti-caffeine. A lot of people do great with coffee. A lot of people do great with other caffeinated beverages, and I don't care because it doesn't affect my life. But if you are struggling with energy, then it's worth it to do that experiment and see if that's what's best for you. Alcohol too, a lot of people will find that their energy will just level out with cutting out alcohol. So worth the experiment to do. The other thing along these lines of our second step of helping to not be so tired, fueling the body, is electrolytes. I'm a big fan of electrolytes. I think that in a perfect world, I'd like to fix everything with food. I find that we often need electrolytes, whether that's, some people will say it's our soil practices, so our food is deficient or deplete of resources in them. Sure, whatever. But when we have electrolytes, a lot of women feel better. So that's another science experiment that it's worth it to do. I find a lot of women also sip on them through the day, or they drink them first thing in the morning. If they exercise in the morning, they have the electrolytes right there. I don't have any data behind that for those who are really brilliant in exercise physiology. They may say to do the electrolytes at the time that you're sweating. But I will say anecdotally from myself and from my patients that having those electrolytes in the afternoon oftentimes helps way more. It helps with that afternoon crash so that you kind of feel this renewed sense of energy, about an hour after lunch. So I will frequently have lunch, and this is what I recommend for my patients, is about an hour after lunch when you start feeling that, like, I call it crash, when you start feeling that energy sag, that's a great time to have electrolytes. You can try a half a serving, you can try a whole serving, and I recommend just drinking it. Don't sip on it for the next 5 hours, but drink it, over 20, 30 minutes, whatever, but get that in. And that can make a really big difference if your energy is more low grade. Now, if you have that more constant fatigue, then you're going to need to do more of these things. I don't think any one of these things is likely to make a massive difference. But if you're doing the circadian rhythm support, if you're doing the electrolytes, if you're fixing the protein and doing all of those things, then you're more likely to see it fix these bigger problems. But if it's really just afternoon fatigue, then oftentimes those electrolytes can make a really, really big difference. The other thing to try is to cut out inflammation in the diet and to stabilize blood sugar in the diet. Oftentimes we have energy peaks and valleys through the day because our blood sugar is trying to keep up and figure out what we're doing. If we are fasting and then we break our fast with carbohydrates, then the body's glucose shoots up. And then if we have a healthy insulin response, then our energy is going to tank as that insulin is effective at dropping our blood sugar, and then we'll feel like we need to eat, so we'll go up again, and then it will tank. So we really want level blood sugar. Well, how do we stabilize blood sugar? You eat protein, you eat fiber, you eat healthy fats. You don't eat many sugars and many simple carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates, the easiest way for me to think about it is carbohydrates that don't have fiber. So if you look at the label and there's no fiber, then likely it's a simple carbohydrate. If it has fiber, like an apple or a piece of fruit or a sweet potato, then that's more of a complex carbohydrate. So by stabilizing our blood sugar, we often can feel much more stable energy. So oftentimes in my clinic, what I'm asking people to do is to do a big science experiment where we kind of do everything at once. So we are going through an elimination trial where we're cutting out inflammatory foods. We're also boosting nutrients. So we're adding all the protein, all the fiber, all the vegetables, all the healthy fats, adding in the electrolytes, adding in the sunlight, and all of that accomplishes everything I've talked about all at once. It stabilizes blood sugar, it fuels the body, it gives the body the appropriate cues to release energy. And I would say 60 to 70% of my patients, that's all they need. Now, I have a skewed perspective because I have patients who are coming to me with years of chronic fatigue. But I will say it still works for a lot of them just to go through these first two steps. Reset your sleep and circadian rhythm and fuel your body. One of the questions I get asked all the time is, what supplements do you recommend? Now, whether this is for daily essentials, sleep support, gut health, what to take during pregnancy, I know how overwhelming it can feel to choose the right products. I have spent hours myself combing through these brands and ingredients, trying to make sure that I can find things that I'm comfortable taking myself and that I'm comfortable recommending to my family and to my patients. I'm then able to get feedback from my patients and family to see, did these supplements actually accomplish what we were hoping that they would accomplish? And this is why I created a curated full script storefront with the brands and supplements I trust most. These are the same ones I use in my clinic and in my own home. When patients say, what do you recommend for magnesium? Or what do you recommend for fish oil? Or what do you recommend as a fiber supplement? All of these supplements are listed in this storefront. If you're curious, just visit the link in the show notes. There's also a link on our website and through our Instagram account to explore all of my favorites in one place. When you purchase through the link, you get 15% off. Now back to the show. Now, number 3 is kind of where I move next. And usually I will do this at the same time if they've come to me so that we don't waste time, but I am looking at testing. This is where I think about a sleep study. This is where I do lab evaluation. How's your thyroid? How are your hormone levels? How's your cortisol? How are your inflammatory markers? How are your nutrient levels? If I have someone come back and their blood work is terrible, they have low nutrient levels, they have high inflammatory markers, they're insulin resistant or pre-diabetic or diabetic, their cholesterol is really high, then I'm still going to go back and do what I just said. We're going to really dive into food, but we may use other supplements and we may be able to target differently. So we may be able to add thyroid medication. We may be able to add that progesterone to help. We may be able to add testosterone or estrogen to help with symptoms. so that we're not just saying like, well, maybe you should just sleep at night. That's one of the frustrations I hear from patients is they go and they get one answer and that answer didn't solve it. So that now they're like, well, I don't know what else to do. There's always more answers. There are always more things to try. But if I can get clues from their lab work, then I can often get them quicker results as we're saying like, okay, let's get your thyroid leveled out. Let's get your nutrients where they need to go. The big nutrients that I think of with fatigue are iron, vitamin D, and B12 or B vitamins. And sometimes I see patients that all three of them are crazy low. And if that's the case, then we want to say, why are they low? Are you not eating it or is your gut not absorbing it? But we can also replace it at the same time. And I do have some patients, a good number of patients who when they're super deficient, that's all it takes. Their energy will be better when they add those nutrients in. So it's worth doing that testing. Another test that I consider is a gut test. So a gut test, as you've probably heard from me and from other people, the gut is kind of core to so many things. So when people have weird things that aren't getting better, I want to know what's going on in the gut. Now, if your symptoms aren't so bad, then we can start with other things. But if you're having persistent issues, then the gut is one of the first places I go. So I like to see really what's going on in the gut to see if we can address that. Now, I will say, if we do lab testing and it comes back abnormal, sometimes patients really appreciate that because it feels like validation, like, you found what's wrong with me. But oftentimes the lab tests come back totally normal, and that can be really frustrating. What I will say is the lab tests we do only test for a couple things. If I could do the test that showed how your circadian rhythm was, if I did the test that showed how long it was taking you to fall asleep, and if you were doing your nervous system exercises, and if you were shutting your brain down, and if you were eating enough protein, if I could do those tests, then we'd find more reasons. But the tests only give us that small fraction of things that we can see. So don't be discouraged if your lab tests are normal. Just consider it great. I ruled that out. I don't have insulin resistance, so I don't have to worry about that one. I don't have vitamin D deficiency, so I don't have to worry about that one. And then we move on to the other steps. So if there's something wrong, great, we'll fix it. If there's not something wrong with your lab work, great, we'll fix something else. So don't despair if those tests are normal. Now, step 4, the fourth thing that you can consider when you are dealing with fatigue, we kind of mentioned this earlier, but is it emotional fatigue, burnout, stress, depression, lack of social connection, loneliness, boredom, lack of intellectual stimulation, or is it physical fatigue? And of course, as we know, the brain is part of the body, so it's never one or the other. But sometimes there is more of a component of emotional fatigue and emotional burden. And if we're just eating protein and, waking up to the sun, that may not be sufficient to deal with that. So you want to ask yourself some questions. Are you feeling burned out with your job? Are you feeling burned out as a mom, as a wife, as a person? If so, the answer lies there that we need to say, how do we adjust things so you don't feel so burnt out? How do we support you so that your body can support your brain and your brain can support your body and the emotional state better so that you can have the energy that you need? If you're feeling emotional fatigue from a certain life situation, then sometimes we want to start there and say, how do we get you a break from this? How do we support you better through this? Is it mindset work? Oftentimes working with a life coach and or a therapist can be really beneficial in this state to say, if I am just so emotionally fatigued, how do I change my mindset to manage that differently so I don't feel so burned out? So if you feel like it's burnout, if you feel like it's emotional burden, then that's where we want to get to talking to someone to learn those skills to help the brain process things better. Along those lines, I think the nervous system can also be really helpful, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So if it's emotional fatigue, we really want to look at that. We also want to start, if it's emotional fatigue, we want to look at ways to connect. How do we connect socially with people that feel more rejuvenating to us? Are you feeling burned out because the people that are closest to you are obnoxious or are wearing on you? And if that's the case, sometimes we do have to make hard decisions about saying, this is really hard for me. You're complaining nonstop. This is not a good relationship for me. Can I go to a relationship that feels like it lifts me and I feel more full after and I feel more rejuvenated after? Sometimes we have to explore that a little bit more as well. Another aspect that I would put in this category is stimulation and overstimulation. And I might even put this above burnout and emotional fatigue because I think this is probably epidemic proportions right now. We spend so much time on screens, on media, listening to podcasts, listening to music. None of these things are bad. I participate in all of these things. But it's helpful to kind of look and see, what space do you have in your life? What quiet do you have in your life? I find that we have so much to do that we're constantly either using our phone to make a list, to meal plan, to look something up. ChatGPT has only, grown this, where now we'll have a random thought and be like, I wonder about that. And then we ChatGPT it. And now we're inundated with even more information. Social media, podcasts, the news, whatever your media form is, where are you getting space from that? Where are you getting quiet? Do you ever drive with nothing on the radio? Just drive. Do you ever drive just talking to someone instead of listening to music in the background? What's happening in your home environment? Do you have a TV kind of always on in the background? Do you have music always on in the background? Do you have a radio always on in the background? There's nothing wrong with those things. Maybe you want those things, but is it just always noise? I think especially the more stimulating our life is inherently. So if you have little kids at home that are just noisy, then that's going to be, I don't want you to ditch your kids, but that's going to be important for you to say like, okay, then I may not be able to handle as much other stimulation right now because my kids are so stimulating to me. And then looking at physical stimulation, are you getting space where you sit by yourself, whether that's in your car, in a warm bath, in nature, where your body can just be without kids climbing on it or kids touching it? I have little kids, so I can totally relate to that. And the stimulation becomes additive. So if you start your day with social media and not natural light, and then you listen to a podcast while you're getting ready for the day, and then you drive to work and you're on Marco Polo. I'm just listing my life right now, by the way. and then when you're at work, maybe you have, music on in the background, or maybe you're in meetings all day, or maybe you're on Zoom or FaceTime, which in my opinion, hit us differently than a face-to-face conversation. It stimulates us differently. If you have, 18 people on a call and you're watching things on the screen and you're also trying to manage your email, you get the point, right? Like, we are so overstimulated, and that is exhausting. So one of the first things you could try if you are fatigued and feeling it's more of this like overstimulation, revved up emotional fatigue would be to try a media fast. Can you give it a week or 2 weeks with no social media, with no podcasts, with limiting the amount of time that you spend on your phone? I get it. This is hard, especially with where my kids are at in life, and we're running them places and looking things up, and the teachers communicate things. So I can't just tune out from my email, and I can't tune out from everything, but can you lessen it? And on the flip side of that, it's not just about lessening it, but it's about consciously choosing space and time. So one of the things that I've done recently is I've been in this, it's always a roller coaster. And recently there was a phase of the roller coaster where the stimulation was higher for me. And I found myself just sitting in a chair by my front window, just kind of enjoying this sun, the spring and the summer and the daylight there. But I kept being tempted to like pick up my phone and look something up, and then I'd put it back down. And then I'd pick up my phone to make a grocery list, and I'd have to say, no, I'll do it later, put it back down. And then I'd pick up my phone to send a text message. No, I can do it later. And just really how difficult it was to really turn off that stimulation and just to sit and do nothing. And so finally I had to set myself a timer for 5 minutes. Like, I am going to sit here and do nothing for 5 minutes. And it was so difficult for me. So if that feels relevant to you, think about ways that you can find that space. I think this is especially difficult for people who identify as extroverts, who feel like they are very fueled by stimulation. I still think there could be a max. And if you're an introvert, then by all means, you need more space. You need more time to recover. But I think even for extroverts, there can still, or people who feel like they have kind of ADHD or they actually thrive on that stimulation. Even so, I think try the experiment. It's going to be uncomfortable for some of us. And even more reason to start gradually training ourselves to have that space. What does that feel like to have that space? And what does it feel like to actually recover? So that's number 4, identifying, is it emotional, and is it burnout? Is it overstimulation? And can you find that space? Number 5 is nervous system regulation. If you've listened to me ever before, then you will know that I talk a lot about fighting saber-tooth tigers. And if this is your first time, then let me briefly recap that. Our brains are built to keep us safe from danger. That goes back to our days as a cave person, right? That we were built to be very simple. We were built to have babies and to not die. So that's really what our mechanisms are working on. If you want to understand the body, it all comes from there. And so if we feel like we are ready to fight tigers, then our body will adapt to help us survive the tigers. And in some ways, that's great. We're really good at fighting tigers. That's why we've survived as a species, right? But if we get stuck in that mode where we feel like we're fighting tigers all the time, then it can start to have trickle-down effects in our bodies that are not good. And one of the ways that happens is if we're fighting tigers nonstop, that means we are high-stress individuals. We feel like we're constantly putting out fires. We have tons going on in our lives. We feel like we're in fight or flight all the time. Then the body will rev everything up needed to survive and shut everything else down to divert energy to survival. So that says digestion, don't need you right now. Sleep, don't need you right now, et cetera, et cetera. So we will be burning through our energy stores just to keep us in fight or flight. Well, what's not included in fight or flight is like going for a walk. It's like getting out of bed. It's like, sitting and having a meal with my family. That's not part of fight or flight. So the body will divert resources towards worrying about things and craving sugar and, accomplishing tasks. That's what we're going to crave when we're in fight or flight. And other things, we're not going to have the energy to do those. Now, if we stay in fight or flight long enough, then the body will start to go into, I call it play dead mode, where the body says I can't keep fighting tigers all the time. Maybe if I play dead, then the animal will leave me alone, will walk past. And so it starts to actually slow down and shut down systems. And this can be especially important for people in long chronic fight or flight, and also people with chronic fatigue, where it's just I am not functioning. I can hardly meet my family's needs, the bare minimum. That's a good indication that your nervous system is at least partly in play. Now, there could also be other things going on. Your hormones might be a mess. You might be nutrient deficient, et cetera. But if that's where you are, then for sure the nervous system is playing a role here. This can lead to shallow sleep as well, or trouble falling asleep. So it becomes like this negative domino effect where we're now diverting energy to stay alive, but also withholding energy so we can play dead, and then also not giving ourselves healing to heal the cells to be able to feel better, and so on, and then not sleeping. So we really want to make sure that we are doing what we can to regulate our nervous system. If we are in fight, then we might be more irritable. We might be snapping at people. We might be lashing out. We might be so mad at the other drivers on the freeway. If we are in flight, then you may feel like you're shutting down. I just can't go there right now. I can't have that conversation. I just need to get away from here. I just need to escape. I need the blanket over my head. And then there's a couple other ones that we don't talk about as much, but freeze and fawn. Freeze can feel quite numb. It can feel very paralyzed. It can feel very dissociated, where it's I'm so happy to not engage right now. And I can't even fight, and I can't even run away. I got nothing. I don't feel anything. And then fawn, what did I say? Fight, flight, fawn, and freeze. That's freeze. Fawn is also somewhat paralyzed. It's like deer in the headlights. I don't even know what to do right now. And so if you find that you can relate with one of those, then there's a decent chance that you need some recovery and repair for your nervous system. And spoiler, that's probably all of us. So what are some things we can do? Number one, there are some hacks that you'll hear about. I'm great with hacks. I think they work. Things like cold water on your face or hands in cold water, that sometimes can help jolt the body a little bit to be wake up. Come on, get going. Doing a full cold plunge, I don't recommend if you are super in fight or flight, because it can cause the opposite. It can stress the body more. Doing breath work, I like 5-7-8 breathing, where you breathe in for 5, hold for 7, out for 8. Don't worry about the counting. You just want the long exhale. I do a lot for me. I'll do hands on my heart. It's just kind of reattaching to myself to say all of this stuff is going on outside of me. My life is stressful. This is going on. I just need to come back here. I need to root down. I need to ground to my inner sense. So I do a lot of hands on heart. I do a lot of toilet breath work. So what that means is I find that it's very helpful to do this multiple times a day, to do breath work or some sort of centering exercise multiple times a day, but that it's extremely difficult to escape the stimulus and to escape the busyness enough to do that. So one of the things I recommend to my patients and that I do myself is every time you go to the bathroom, can you recenter? Can you regroup? Can you do a little breath work or whatever it is that feels best to you? The bathroom is a really perfect place to do that because number one, we use the bathroom multiple times a day, and hopefully, if not, you should. But when you go to the bathroom, usually you're alone. I've got tiny kids, so it's not always the case. But hopefully when you're in the bathroom, you can have that time just to be by yourself for a minute, to regroup, to have that little centering moment, and doing that over and over through the day of saying like, I don't need to rev up so high. I don't need to be fighting and fleeing all the time. Like, let me come back to me and who I am. And that gives our body the chance to rev down throughout the day instead of just trying not to overreact when we're in the situation. So if a guy cuts us off in traffic and we're thinking like, how do I not overreact to that? You don't. If you're revved up, you're going to overreact to it. It's not a matter of fixing that reaction. It's a matter of calming down your daily system so that you don't have as much of an overreaction to begin with. And we do that backwards. We think like, how do I not snap at my kids? What parenting hack can I learn so I don't snap at my kids? What therapy can I use so I don't snap at my husband or so my husband doesn't annoy me? Like, that's not really the point. The point is if the nervous system is dysregulated, you've got to bring it down overall. And we do that through daily work, through hourly work. And because we're busy, most of us can't stop and meditate for 5 minutes every hour, but we can go to the bathroom and we can take a breath and we can set up our mantra or our phrasing that reminds us of who we are. We can do a little bit of breath work in the morning. We can do some grounding in the morning. We can get some nature time on the grass in the morning when we do that circadian rhythm exercise. And then having sort of that wind down procedure at nighttime that I talked about, that gateway routine, doing a little bit of brain dump, doing a little bit of meditation, essential oil. I like lavender on my wrist just to have that sensory stimulus to calm down. So you see all of these things become additive, and it's not 18 separate things. It's like 6 really good things that fix everything else. So nervous system is important for fatigue. And if you are fatigued, you've got to do nervous system work. There's very low likelihood that you don't need some nervous system support if you're chronically fatigued. Number 6 is hormones. I kind of already touched on these and I won't go too much into depth because it is kind of a lengthy conversation. But just to say, if you are exhausted, there's a chance your hormones are involved and you should see a hormone specialist. It could be estrogen, could be testosterone. Those ones are the ones that I see boost the energy the most. If it's more lack of sleep, then adding progesterone can certainly boost energy. But the estrogen is really where we start feeling like, gosh, I feel like myself again. Testosterone too can boost energy a ton. So having those hormone levels tested and or talk to someone who knows what they're talking about to see if that's reasonable for you. Number 7 is our mitochondria. So this one is getting into the nitty gritty. And this is kind of the order that I go through unless someone's symptoms, someone's story tilt me a different way. If they say I'm snoring a ton and, I stop breathing at night, then obviously I'm going to start with that. If they say I'm perimenopausal and my fatigue started 1 year ago when I started having hot flashes, then I'm going to start with estrogen and progesterone and kind of address that first. But otherwise, I'm going to go through these in order. And the last step is if we've gone through these other basics and you're still exhausted, then we're saying there's something we're missing. There's something deeper that's telling your body to not give you energy. If you've already fixed the fuel problem, then it's not that you're deficient in energy. So why, if you're eating really nourishing foods, then why aren't your cells giving you energy? Because there's a cellular problem. And some of those cellular issues that we think about would be chronic infection. If your body is feeling really burdened from fighting a chronic infection, or the infection itself can make you really tired, things like mycotoxin illness like mold can make you really tired. And part of that's because of the immune system dysfunction. Part of it's because of the mycotoxins themselves. So if your body has a chronic infection, that can definitely lead to this really deep chronic fatigue. Spoiler, how do we fix that chronic infection? You fix the nervous system, you fuel the body, you go to bed on time. So there are other things that we can do, but just to go back, those basics are always the right place to start. But if they're not working, then I'll go deeper and I'll say, do you have an infection that's telling my cells to not release energy? Do you have toxic burden? Is there just too much garbage in your body that it's just feeling weighed down and it's actually interfering with the mechanics of the body where the cells can't do their processes right because they're too busy trying to deal with this foreign substance that they don't know what to do with. So oftentimes, as part of the dietary changes we're doing, we're also adding detoxification support at that time to see if we can get the energy better as well. And then this idea of mitochondrial health and cellular health, if you Google that, you'll find lots of supplements that are like mitochondrial support. I don't find that those supplements work very well in isolation. They can be part of the solution where you say, okay, I'm fixing the infection that's taxing the mitochondria. I'm fixing the detoxification pathways and getting stuff out of my body so that my body can work better. I'm going to fix that. And then we add the nutrients that we need to repair the mitochondria. Then it can be helpful. But really, it's never just the mitochondria. So you'll see this talked about in functional medicine about like mitochondria aren't functioning. It's never just that. They don't just stop working on their own. They stop working through a series of events: immune system dysfunction, poor sleep, poor nutrition, poor gut health. So we've talked about all these things that lead up to fixing energy, and they should help fix the mitochondria as well. But sometimes if we've done all of that and you're still tired, then we can boost the mitochondrial repair as well. So it's a big topic to get into just in these last couple minutes, but I just want you to know that there's hope. If you've gone through all these other basics and you're saying like, I've tried it, it doesn't work, I'm still tired, then there's more we can do. There's more we can investigate. But I still think that we really need to dive into those other 6 factors. So the first one we talked about was resetting your sleep and boosting your circadian rhythm, especially lighten your eyeballs first thing in the morning, go to bed, and do what you can to stay asleep. If you need extra help, then we need to do that. Number 2, fueling the body. Protein, colorful fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, electrolytes, especially breakfast and lunch. Dinner's more forgiving, but especially focusing on breakfast and lunch, and then stopping eating after dinner and before breakfast, obviously. Number 3 is do whatever testing you need to do to see if there's any sort of abnormalities that we can target more directly, nutrient deficiencies, thyroid. Number 4 is recognize if it's emotional and overstimulation, then we can really target those directly. Take a social media fast. Don't listen to anything while you're driving. These little things that can give you space to help the body recover emotionally and from stimulation. Number 5 was nervous system regulation, adding these nervous system exercises throughout the day, not just doing it once and being like, meditation doesn't work for me, but are you cueing your body multiple times through the day that we live out of fight or flight? If not, then your body is in fight or flight and it's exhausting. That's expensive for the body to be in fight or flight nonstop, and you're going to be tired at some point. You're going to get tired if you live in fight or flight. Number 6 is hormones. So really looking at, do you need hormone replacement therapy or do you need to balance your hormones out better? Again, spoiler, you balance your hormones by doing the other things that I just said, so you'll already have been working on those. And then number 7 was deeper cellular support, mitochondrial support, looking at what may be damaging the mitochondria to begin with, like toxins, infection, lack of nutrients, lack of light, lack of sunlight, and really going from there. And then just a little bonus for this last minute is specific for afternoon crash. We do have a freebie on the website for combating this afternoon crash. So you can message us or go to the website and get that. And it basically just puts these into a really concise format. But if the main thing is your energy is tanking, then we think about high protein, low carb meals. We think about electrolytes. We think about sunlight. We think about changing your activity so you get a little emotional break. And we have all of that in a cute little handout for you, so you can always access that on the website. The biggest thing that I will finish with is I get a lot of patients who say, I tried that, and I say something else, and they say, I tried that, and then I say this, and they say, I tried that. Make sure that you're not shutting down some of these tools prematurely because you may not have tried it enough, religiously enough. So most of these things are not going to take months and months and months to try. Most of them are going to take about 2 weeks, and you're going to start seeing wins, changing your food, changing your circadian rhythm, adding these other nutrients, managing your nervous system. It might take time for it to heal everything and for it to really repair the body, but you should be able to feel wins within about 2 weeks. So make sure that if you say like, well, my sleep is fine, is it? Like really take the time to look at it and make sure, because otherwise we're just missing opportunities for you to feel better. I don't do any of these perfectly, I will be honest. And still, there have been It's still a little bit of a roller coaster. I'm pregnant right now, so that's never great for energy. But I will say over the past couple years, I have had long stretches of time that I have never known I could have so much energy, where I get home from work and I'm like, kids, you want to go for a hike? Like, I feel great. What else can we do today? And that is not a normal thing for me. And I think it's not a normal thing for a lot of us, but it's possible. It's really, really possible. So I hope this is helpful for you. If this is helpful, we'd love to hear from you. It's always helpful for me to hear from you, honestly, because it's kind of lonely just talking to a microphone, but this is for you. This is why we do it, is to share information that hopefully is helpful for you. So please let us know if it's helpful. You can message us on Instagram, on Facebook. You can get to us through the website. We have contact information there. Leave a comment on our videos or our podcast, but we would really love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what else you want to hear and what would be helpful to you. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. We are grateful for the incredible support from our sponsors and to all of you listening. We couldn't do this without you. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing on your favorite platform. You can find us on our website, upliftforher.com, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you love to listen. And if you found value here today, please share this episode with someone who would benefit from it. Leave us a comment or give us a review. It really helps us reach more listeners like you. Thank you for being part of our community. Stay tuned for our next episode. Lastly, this information is for educational purposes only and not intended to be medical advice.